All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Listen, I wanted to take this opportunity to walk you through some of the numbers, give you an idea how we got to where we're at. I think it's important that all of you know the chronology of this and what the impact of all of this will be, not just on JSO, but the safety of our community. Back a few months ago, the mayor's office started coming over and we started talking about cuts. They said, look, we need 15 million. If you can get to 11, we think that'll be pretty good. So we did that. We have some chiefs positions we're going to remain unfunded, some assistant chiefs. We're going to look at a director in January. A lot of operational cuts, different things, saving on uniforms, ammo, all sorts of different cuts. We came up with 11 million. Then they came back and said, well, this was after the new actuarial on the pension. They said, well, look, we need 22 million. I said, that can't happen. I said, well, we have to have 22 million because the pension's gone up 46 million this year, and 26 or 27, almost 27 million of that is in my budget. So my budget's going up 27 million for pension. So I said, look, that's not how I would address this revenue shortfall. We have a revenue shortfall in this community because property taxes are down. So they anticipate actually bringing in $22 to $24 million less in ad valorem property taxes than we brought in last year. So I said what I would do to cover that shortfall is I would do the rollback rate and ask people, if you paid $1,000 last year, you pay $1,000 this year. Yes, the rate rolls up, but you're paying the same in dollars, and you pay your taxes in dollars, not rate. So if it's $1,000 that you paid last year, I'm asking they pay $1,000 this year. Because if these cuts are made to stand, we are going to have fewer officers on the street and more drug addicts on the street. And people are going to have to wait a significant amount of time for crashes on state roads. Because I will have to cut all of the community service officers. I will have to lay off and close one of our jails and lay off all of those correctional officers. And we're cutting 10 vacancies, actually more than that, for police. I think it was 74 was the total. They said, well, we want you to make these cuts. So we did. That gave us a $364 million budget. In the packet that I sent out to all of you about a week ago, you'll notice in there was a budget that had the date July 10th in the top right-hand corner, and that was a $364 million budget. That was the budget that I actually had Karen Bowling from the mayor's office over so we could, as we call it, go to the wall. So you can put all the line item stuff up and go through that, showing the impact that these cuts were going to have. We did that with our $364 million. Then we even had the council president over, Bill Bishop, to show him, look, these are significant cuts. These are cuts that are going to impact on public safety. I don't agree with them, but this is what we're going to have to do. These are the mayor's cuts. These are not the sheriff's cuts. I've already told them how I would settle this. But they refused to do it in that manner. Then on July 16th, the budget comes out. We go through the budget. I now have a $358 million budget. They cut an additional $6.1 million without even telling us. Completely blindsided on that. And their explanation is they didn't have time to call me. They knew that number on Wednesday when that book went to print. And they didn't have a chance between Wednesday and the following Monday to pick up the phone, pick up a cell phone and call me. Now, with all the other cuts that we've already made, that extra $6.1 million can come from nowhere else but police officers. That's all we've got left. That translates to 114 positions and 95 officers actually getting a pink slip. That's why I say these cuts by the mayor are going to result in fewer police on the street and more drug addicts. We're going to close one of the best in-jail drug treatment programs in the country. That's where we're at. Now, if they would do the rollback rate, ask people to pay this year what you paid last year, that would bring in that 22 to 24 million that we're not getting right now. If they would give me 8 million of that 22 million, I could save the CSOs and keep our small jail operational. Now, the last 6.1 that they didn't even tell us about, that's going to involve laying off police officers, laying 95 off and cutting 114 positions. I've sent and had drafted an ordinance that's going to be introduced by Councilman, or President of the Council, Bill Bishop. This year, we were able to save $8.8 million, mainly because you all took a 3% cut in your salary. Now, we didn't get the benefit of all of that because they only funded us at 98% in salaries anyway going into the year. But you did your part. You stood up, you took your 3% cut. That's part of the money that we saved. The rest of what we saved was from vacancies and cutting overtime significantly and other operational things that we've been able to do throughout the year to generate an $8.8 million savings in this year's budget. I'm asking the Council President to introduce legislation that will give us a portion of that savings, that $6.1 million, so that that extraordinary lapse number that they put in the budget will go away. And I won't have to lay off police officers. Now, I heard Mr. Belton say that we simply give the sheriff numbers and the sheriff decides where to cut. Well, that's true, but you own the cuts. These are the mayor's cuts. These aren't my cuts. And he says, well, look, we're not telling you you have to lay people off. I'm like, really? Let me show you this. This blue bar on the left, that's salaries and benefits. The red bar here is internal services. I can't cut that. I have to do business with the city and have to pay whatever they charge me. Can't cut that. The small blue one down here is insurance. Can't cut that. The middle two, which totals about $26 million, that's things like inmate food, guard service, all sorts of other operational costs that we have that have already been cut for several years. Folks, you look at this budget, there is nowhere else to cut but personnel. Now, if they will simply do the roll-up or rollback rate, ask people to pay this year what they paid last year, I would only need $8 million of that money. Now, if they don't want to do the whole rollback, that's fine. Only do a portion, but do enough that you can recoup this $8 million so I don't have to lay off all the CSOs and I don't have to close one of our jails. Without it, that's what's going to happen. Without the $6.1 million, without me being able to get a portion of the savings that every one of you in this room helped generate, I'm going to have to lay off 95 policemen and cut a total of 114 positions. So these cuts by the mayor are going to result in more officers off the street, more drug addicts on the street. And quite frankly, I don't think that's the kind of city that we want to have. Folks, we are going the way of Detroit. You know, the mayor says we don't want to be Stockton, California and have to declare bankruptcy. I agree. That's why the pension situation has to be fixed. But folks, I also don't want to go the way of Chicago and have 54 people shot on one Labor Day weekend. One Labor Day weekend. I also don't want to go the way of Detroit. But we're headed there. If you look at the Blueprint for Prosperity report that said from 1990 to 2000, the number of people that work in Duval County but are now choosing to live outside Duval County and pay their taxes outside Duval County, that number went up 45%. And folks, they're not moving out for lower taxes. They've got that here. What they're moving out for is quality of life. They don't want their family murdered in their neighborhoods. They don't want their children dying in the carnage of our roadways. They want their children to go to school to get educated, not beat up and bullied. These cuts are not going to help public safety in this community. It will continue to drive people out of this community that have the economic wherewithal to go. That's why we have to address this issue of the rollback rate and giving JSO $6.1 million of their $8.8 million savings so that we can provide the same level of service this year that we provided last year. But if we're given less revenue, we will have to provide less service. There is no other way. Now, I want to make this clear, because the budget's got to be fixed, folks. Well, we also need everybody to understand how we got here. In this paper, and you can go to our website, JAXSHERIFF.org, and find it. I sent it out to all of you in that email. In 1992 and 93, our millage rate was 11.31. And they started rolling back our millage rate, and they started taking money from the Police and Fire Pension Fund excess reserves and the General Employees Pension Fund excess reserves. They rolled that rate back for 13 years till in 2006 it finally got down to 9.65. Now it's crept back up to 10.03. But it's still down from 11.3. It's at 10.03 today. Fact of the matter is, had they not given everyone those tax breaks for 13 years and left that money in here, with principal and interest out for both pension funds, that would be $274 million sitting there for us to use now that the pension fund is making less than the market. That's how we got here. Two things that I point to as evidence that this is not about just benefits. Number one, go look at I think it was August of 2008, the Florida Times Union. They did a story about our pension and found that it was middle of the road for the state of Florida. The second thing, evidence that this is about more than benefits, is the fact that the General Employees Pension Fund is in a ditch. It's in the same financial ditch that the Police and Fire Pension Fund is in. You know why? Because they took their money too. Now, when Stephen Jost was council president, he admitted it. They said, look, we took the money, and he didn't mean him, but previous mayors and councils had taken that money. He said, look, we took it, but now it's got to be fixed. And he's absolutely right. It's got to be fixed. Well, we also got to be honest about how we got here and what the issue is, and it wasn't just benefits. Now the market's crashed, and they're making less than the assumption rate, when all those years before, when they were making more than the assumption rate, they were taking the money. The council, I think it was under President Jost, actually passed a bill that the council And the mayor's office can no longer do that. They can't take that money out of there. Now, it was legal to do. Don't get me wrong, it was legal to do. I think it was fiscally irresponsible, but it was legal. Now they can't do that anymore. Folks, we need to share these cuts with your family and friends and the city council. If these cuts by the mayor are allowed to stand, we're going to have fewer police officers on the street and more drug addicts. And our mothers and fathers and sons and daughters are going to have to sit on the roadway waiting for FHP to come work their traffic crash on state roads. And as most people don't know, just about every major thoroughfare in this city is a state road. So in Zone 2, 3, and 4, FHP is going to have to pick up that responsibility. Now, we've done it for them for many years. That's always been their responsibility, but JSO stepped up as a service to this community. We stepped up and did it. There's many, I don't know if y'all realize this, there's many counties throughout this state. They do not work crashes on state roads. Orange County is one of them. Big counties. We've always taken that on because we're proud of our service to this community. We can't do that anymore. I have nowhere else to cut but personnel. Carry that message out. If these are the cuts that the community wants, then I'm fine with that, because I want to give the community what they want. But you know, a politician will tell them what they want to hear. A statesman will tell them what they need to hear. And what they need to hear is, we're going the way of Detroit. We're going the way of Chicago. And trust me, we're going to become Chicago long before we become Stockton. Talk to your friends and neighbors, get them to call the council, get them to call the mayor's office, let them know what's going on. And whether they agree or disagree with these cuts, either way. But we as an organization have to be committed, and I know you are, to give this community the best service we can give for the dollars that we are funded. We will continue to do that. We're going to serve this community just as finely as we have in the past, with whatever dollars they fund us with, to the best of our ability. Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you. If you would, fall out in your respective areas. I know the chiefs want to have a word with you. God bless you all and be safe out there.